Nintendo has always been the king of video games. Nintendo not only gave us some of the greatest games of all time, but also shaped and revolutionized the world of gaming into what it is today. Today, their games may not be as impressive as they were 2 decades ago, but they have a charm and appeal to them that will never fade. In fact, if you ask most gamers what their favorite Nintendo console is, I can guarantee you that most of them won't say it's the Wii. The truth is that the preferred Nintendo console for most gamers will almost always and unanimously be the Super Nintendo, and for all the right reasons. The Super Nintendo is definitely the one console that had the biggest influence on today's gaming world. Even the controller looks very similar to something else you might have played already. The controller made popular the use of having 4 buttons, 2 left and right buttons, and even the D-pad itself was very analog and perfect for controlling most games. In its time, the SNES was able to best some of the other consoles because it had a strong library of games that had the best graphics and sound of any other console at the time. Anyway, the games were great and they represented a simpler time when playing a game was just you, a TV, and a controller. None of this anger-inducing first-person shooters that we have nowadays. So let's take a look at a few of the games. Now I got 4 games to take a look at here. I'm not going to tie them in any order, they're not tied together in any theme, we're just going to play them as we go. Let's get started. Let's go apeshit with Donkey Kong Country. Donkey Kong Country is often considered to be one of the greatest platformers to ever exist. It has a lot of what you would expect out of a Super Nintendo game. It has gorgeous graphics, excellent music, amazing level design, and it's a pretty challenging game. The story of Donkey Kong Country is pretty simple. One day Donkey Kong and his nephew Diddy Kong wake to find out that the Kremlings have stolen their secret banana hoard. From there, the Kongs set out on an adventure through Congoland to get their bananas back. I'm sure the first thing that sells Donkey Kong Country is its beautiful animation. This is such a beautiful game to look at. Everything about this game is gorgeous, from its unique art style to its brilliant character design. Donkey Kong Country has sort of a 2D, 3D hybrid to it, if that makes sense. In other words, it means that you're playing a fully 3D game, but in a 2D environment. Those of you who are probably new to Donkey Kong Country are probably wondering what exactly makes this game different from other platformers like Mario. Well, the one element that DKC has that those other games don't is that Donkey Kong Country has sort of a rhythm and pacing to its core gameplay. Like blasting in barrels, making some precision heavy jumps, and knowing which enemies your Kong can take out. Speaking of which, this game has a great tag team element to it as you switch Kongs depending on the situation. In a nutshell, this is how it works. Donkey Kong is strong and can take down enemies with ease, but he's not incredibly fast and can't make too many jumps. Diddy, on the other hand, is much faster, nimble, and has better dexterity than his mentor does, seeing how Diddy can jump a little better than DK can. Now, the one thing I can say about DKC that everyone will agree with me on is that this game is pretty difficult. I mean, the first few levels are a cakewalk, but as you progress, it can get insanely hard at some parts, and will cause momentary angst of aggression. Don't get me wrong, the game isn't damn near impossible hard like Silver Surfer, or just flat out impossible like Battletoads, but it does have somewhat of a fair challenge to it. Some hard levels include the Ice Mountain levels, where you have to dodge the wasps that have nothing better to do than to chill around the mountain slopes at sub-zero temperatures. And then there's the very challenging, but very fun minecart level. But trust me when I say that the game's bosses are incredibly easy. Just make sure you don't get too excited and think you can sneak in another hit. So that's Donkey Kong Country. It has beautiful graphics, awesome music, addicting gameplay, and enormous replay value for anyone who wants a good game with more than a fair challenge to it. Okay, let's pick another game. Time to kick some alien ass. Contra III defines the word badass. If you've ever played any of the NES titles, then that's more of a reason to play this one. Contra III is a brand new experience of a game that builds on 2 great predecessors with some new toys for gamers to play around with. For starters, you have the machine gun, which you start off with right from the beginning, and as you play on, you can upgrade your gun to the spreader, the homing missiles, the crusher, the laser gun, and even some new gadgets like the bombs and the barriers. But also like its NES brothers, Contra III is pretty hard. But unlike its NES brothers, there's no extra life cheat code to help you out here.
Remember how in the first Contra you had 30 lives and how in Super C you had 10 lives? Well here, the only option you have is to go to the options menu and give yourself up to 7 lives. You can get more as the game progresses, but other than that, there's no extra lives cheat code. At least not in the American version, that is. Now while we didn't get the code, Japan did. You know, that's really unfair and rather biased. I mean, think about it. Japan got the full 30 lives cheat code for Contra III, which for some reason had robots in it, and they got the top loader with the EV Multia, not that RF crap that we got stuck with. But all complaints aside, Contra III is without a doubt a great game. Moving on, you're probably wondering just how hard is this game? Well, to be honest, it's not as hard as Super C. In Super C, I can never make it past the second stage, but in Contra III, I can actually see the whole damn game. Aside from great game design, the enemies are a bit more challenging and the bosses are huge and will always surprise you. Just take my word for it when I say that Contra III is worth picking up. Whether you can find a cartridge for a reasonable price, or you can download it from the Virtual Console. Okay, so what's next? Yes! The Force is strong with this game. Super Empire Strikes Back is just one of 3 installments in the Super Star Wars series on the Super Nintendo. Now, there are some people who have their own issues with this game, mostly because of its difficulty, but I think it's a fair addition to the Star Wars universe, and it's one of the better movie tie-in games. The first thing I can say about the game is that it has some pretty impressive visuals for its time, and the music is as close to John Williams' score as a 16-bit game could get. As for the gameplay itself, it is fantastic. The game is split up into side-scrolling levels, 3D flying levels, some 2D flying levels, and a first-person asteroid level. So as you can see, the game has a lot going for it. This game has a total of 3 characters to play as: Luke, Han, and Chewie, each with their own unique abilities. Luke can use different force powers, and he has a lightsaber and a blaster. He also has the best attack in the whole game. He could do a spinning jump attack with his lightsaber. I use this attack almost all the time when playing as him, and almost never acknowledge that he even has a blaster to begin with. Both Han and Chewie use a blaster and can carry bomb-like grenades like in Contra III. The only problem I have with this game is that playing as either Han or Chewie is incredibly difficult. There are some enemies that take like 25 shots to kill, and some that just piss you off. There are some boss battles, but here, the challenge is based on how sharp your skills as a gamer are, and has nothing to do with the game's engine whatsoever. Now to be fair, the game isn't bad. It is challenging, but it's a guilty pleasure of a challenging game, meaning you're still going to want to play it even though you know what to expect. I would even go as far as to call it one of the best Star Wars games ever made. Right up there with Shadows of the Empire, Star Wars Battlefront, and The Force Unleashed. Well, it looks like we've got one more game left to play. Wanna know what's so special about this game? I'll tell you. It's the only game out of all the other ones I've reviewed that isn't available on the Virtual Console. Only on a game cartridge or on an emulator. That's right. The game that made popular the use of Nintendo's Super FX chip. Not to be confused with blast processing. The game was revolutionary because it made famous the use of creating an environment that was constructed completely out of polygons. But not only that, it was also pretty fun. As for the gameplay, you fly your jet and you destroy enemies and fight a boss at the end of each level. Pretty basic stuff. The controls are also pretty standard for a flying game. But here, you can shoot, barrel roll, shoot bombs, speed, and brake. At the start of the game, you have at least 3 different paths you can choose from, based on your choice of difficulty. You can even choose your own control scheme from the main menu, and test drive those controls in the training mode for the game. The only objection I have with this game is that your teammates will constantly get their asses in trouble and will ask you to rescue them, while you're trying to focus on the enemies going after you. But that's only a minor complaint. It doesn't ruin the game as a whole. Well, after all these years, I can definitely say that this game has aged well, and it's one of the better flying games that should be released on the Wii's Virtual Console. Well, that's all the games I have for right now. Thanks for watching, and if you like what you saw, or if you have any suggestions for any games you might want to see here, please make a response in the comments section below. And don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. Thanks again.